We got to dive into our facts or cap bag today, as since the Oklahoma City Thunder have been eliminated and Chet Holmgren had one of the worst performances in a Game 7 from an all-star that you're ever going to see, there's now been a lot of conversation from Bulls fans on if the Chicago Bulls should make a trade for Chet Holmgren if the OKC Thunder truly make him available. My answer on that, we're going to dive into the reasons why it could make sense, the reasons why it wouldn't make sense, and where my personal stance on it is, or we'll talk about that. And I've done a little bit more research on Kevin Young, and he may be a stronger coaching candidate than what a lot of us gave him credit for, but I still don't like it, though. So we're going to talk about all that plus more and dive a little bit into the mailbag right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. So the first thing, should the Chicago Bulls trade for Chet Holmgren if he is available? Now, I'm going to bring what I do over on NBA Central over here. Oh, by the way, before we get too far, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers on this channel, and about 42 to 44% of you guys that watch every single day are not subscribed to the channel. And that's because I post every day. I'm in your algorithm. A lot of people think they're subscribed because they see my videos all the time, but hit that subscribe button, help a play out. I'm trying to get to 50,000 subscribers so I can get to that bragging right point. But with that said, should the Chicago Bulls trade for Chet Holmgren? I'm bringing over the way that I debate over on NBA Central. I talk about both sides of the argument. So I'm going to lay out the reasons why a trade for Chet Holmgren could make sense and why it won't make sense. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about all sides of it, right? We're going to get very into detail with this one. But of course, I want to hear from you guys on it. So let's talk about it, right? Chet Holmgren is a extremely young player in the NBA, first-time All-Star this year, a player that defensively brings a lot of exactly what the Chicago Bulls are missing. At 7'1", but 208 pounds, there's a position question around Chet Holmgren. Can he actually play center long-term? And the question that you have there is going to lead you a long way on how you feel about him potentially coming over to the Chicago Bulls. Now, again, in the reasons why he could work for the Bulls, I'm going to focus on the court. I'm going to focus on what he does on the court that actually helps the Chicago Bulls. For one, at 24 years old, Chet Holmgren fits the Chicago Bulls timeline amazingly well. The age timeline falls right in line with Josh Giddey, Matas Buzelis. You still have your 4 pick. You still have your 15 pick. So those picks are going to be a little bit younger. But they're still, I look at a team's timeline, and you want your main foundation to all be within like 5 years of each other. That's basically what you want. Like some people think you got to have all 22-year-olds or something like that. It's basically a 5-year range from your youngest player that's actually part of your foundation, that is part of what you're building with, to your oldest player as part of that foundation. You typically want about a 5-year gap. That's typically how it works around the NBA. Now, of course, there are times where that does not fit, but typically when you're building, that's what it is. Now, once you become a contender, that range can vary a little bit more, right? But he also immediately solves the Chicago Bulls defense at the rim problem that we've had for almost the better part of a decade. We have lacked rim defense for a long time, and he brings that. When you look at what Chet's already done at 24 years old, an NBA champion, all-star, NBA third team, all defensive first team. Last year, averages of 17 points, 8.9 rebounds, 1.9 blocks, 55% shooting from the field, and 36% from three. And he did all of that while having a defensive rating of 104. I don't know if people understand how elite a defensive rating of 104 is. Chet Holmgren is an elite defensive player per every statistic. Now, are there some matchups where he gets cooked in? Because I already know there are going to be some people, well, Haize, did he look elite against the Spurs? And no, he did not. But, again, moving to the East, you won't have to worry about the Spurs in the playoffs as much. But, he's there, right? And so with the Bulls building around players like Josh Giddey, Matas Buzelis, having guys, on that team, Chet fits perfectly in that age range of what you're trying to build with this team, right? And I think, unlike trading for most veteran stars, you're adding someone who could grow with your core and is already, a 4-year NBA vet, but still fits that timeline, right? He solves the defensive problem. Opponent rim attempts, right? When you look at the Bulls as a team, we're at the bottom of opponent rim attempts, opponent paint scoring, interior defensive consistency. The Bulls were at the bottom of that. Chet Holmgren changes that overnight, averaging nearly 2 blocks per game, right, is one of the most elite rim protectors in the league, right? And you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, with Chet Holmgren on the floor, they had a 106 defensive rating. That is elite, again, to say it. That's there, right? So when you think of a front court with Chet Holmgren, Matas Buzelis, potentially Caleb Wilson or Cam Boozer, because again, if you bring it in Chet, well, that gets in. I'll get into that. Like, you're talking about elite rim protection. Elite rim protection. I told you guys last season on the minutes, just the minutes that Jalen Smith and Matas Buzelis were on the court together, the Chicago Bulls were a top 10 rim protecting team. That's why I wanted to see them use that lineup a little bit more. Chet Holmgren kind of fits within that immediately, right? The defensive ceiling of the Chicago Bulls would be absolutely ridiculous in it, right? The offense as well fits perfectly with Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey needs vertical spacing, pick and pop bigs, transition finishers, and high IQ players. Chet Holmgren fits into all of that, right? He gives Bulls all 4 of those things. He's a really good roller to the rim. He can pop out for a 3. He attacks closeout, and even though he doesn't look as graceful doing it, he does run and finish in transition. He's not a ball dominant player, despite him putting up almost 18 points per game. Chet Holmgren doesn't need the ball a lot to be effective, and that's the type of when you have any player that doesn't need the ball to be highly effective is usually a good player to build with, because it adds so much versatility in the type of players that you can put around them if you do that, right? I think that he amplifies the things that Josh, and they already have a chemistry, right? He gives Chicago a defensive identity that we don't have, right? He just has that. When you look at a future lineup, like it brings some of that, right? The Bulls with Chet Holmgren on the team, with Matas Buzelis on the team, become one of the more long switchable, and don't let them add Caleb Wilson as well, like long switchable defense, stuff like that, right? You can envision a world in which the Bulls would legitimately have a top 10 defense with Chet Holmgren. But that leads us to why Chet doesn't make sense. It comes down to the cost, right? Chet Holmgren's extension is about to kick in, and that's a $41.5 million extension for 5 years that ends up being $54 million. Now, the thing is, Chet fits the age range in that. He fits that. But what is the cost that it's going to take? Because, of this, I've been talking so far like the Bulls keeping the number 4 overall pick, and that is where this gets tough. I'm not moving number 4 in this draft for Chet Holmgren. You know why? Because the Bulls are more than one piece away. And that's what this ultimately comes down to, is that if you were one piece away and you got Chet Holmgren and boom, you are a perennial a contender, you do that move any day of the week. But the Bulls are still on the ground floor of this. And adding Chet Holmgren to the Bulls, while it does solve a lot of the defensive woes that the Chicago Bulls does have, Chet, as we just talked about, and as we saw in the playoffs, he's not the go. The Bulls still need their number 1. They need their star. And that's not a knock to Josh Giddey or Matas Buzelis, but neither one has turned themselves into a star that you look at and you say, you are a championship contender by those guys being the number 1 players on your team. We don't have that. They're players that you can build with. They're players that I think are damn good, and I think that some people underrate them and how good they could be. I definitely think that, but they haven't shown that to this degree. Adding Chet to this team would absolutely raise the ceiling and the floor, but how much would it really raise that ceiling is what you have to ask for that, right? And so that's the question when it comes down to, you have to be careful in this one, right? And the OKC Thunder, we already know they're very opportunistic. That's how they got the draft picks that they got. They're probably not trading Chet Holmgren to the Chicago Bulls if it's not for the number 4 overall pick, because guess what? If they're trading Chet, that means that they are going star hunting, whether that stars they feel it's Cam Boozer at number 4, or they feel it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, which I talked about that over on NBA Central, right? So it doesn't make sense for that reason. Oklahoma isn't trading Chet Holmgren because he's bad. And despite what some knee-jerky fans would have you, one bad series that he had against the San Antonio Spurs, and make no mistake about it, it was horrible. He didn't show up the way that they need to. It doesn't make him a bad player, because guess what? They wouldn't have gotten to where they got to where they got if it wasn't for Chet Holmgren as well. They wouldn't have been the team that they were this season if it wasn't for Chet Holmgren. But he faltered in the light, and now people are looking at him mad funny in the light, and that's a reality of it, right? They're only, in my personal opinion, the OKC Thunder are only trading Chet Holmgren if they can feel they can land a star, combined with the financial concerns of the second tax apron, and they believe a player is a more natural, better fit for what they want to do. And those things sound like Cam Boozer. And I'll tell you what, maybe this is me selfishly, but if the Oklahoma City Thunder are so enamored by Cam Boozer to where they are willing to trade Chet Holmgren for him, it makes me want to keep the 4th overall pick and potentially draft Cam Boozer even more. Now, he could be off the board by the time the Bulls pick, and the Bulls could, be left with Caleb Wilson, and that's perfectly fine. I love Caleb Wilson, as I've talked about many times before, right? So it's likely that if the Oklahoma City Thunder even take the call from the Chicago Bulls, they may want multiple first-round picks on top of our number 4 pick, or Matas Buzelis and multiple first-round picks and all of that. I'm not doing that right now because, again, not to say that Chet he's a better player than Matas Buzelis where Matas is right now, and I'm not saying that he's not. But the combination of Matas and Cam Boozer, the combination of Caleb Wilson and Cam Boozer may ultimately net you more back, because you're not paying $50 million to one of those guys. Even when both Caleb Wilson and Matas Buzelis get their extension, they're both probably going to combine for that unless one of them has turned into a superstar by then, right? And so you have to ask yourself this. It's not just about, is your ceiling higher with just Matas? It's about, is your ceiling higher with Matas, the number 4, and the future first-round picks that you have all combined? That's what you have to ask here. And that's where sometimes we can get a little bit too zoomed out as fans of the teams, to where we just think about, oh, yeah, Matas, Chet is better than Matas. Boom, you trade that, you get there, you're good. It's not always that simple. And because also Chet isn't a center, right, it means that you don't want either Matas or Cam Boozer or Caleb Wilson, because you have to open up one of those 4 spots, because I do think the Thunder at one point thought Chet was going to develop into the center, and he has not developed into that, right? He is a power forward, which is fine. He's elite at it, but you need a big body, strong center next to him. That's why they have Isaiah Hartenstein. That's why they drafted Thomas Sorber, because you need that type of player next to Chet. Now, the Bulls could get that, right? And it's possible in that, but it's just the answer isn't as straightforward as what some people want to make it out to be. The Bulls are not one player away, and I keep saying that. Even with Chet, they're not a title contender. They're not an Eastern Conference finals favorite either in where they are. Giving up significant draft capital before you're truly ready to compete, that's how you get further stuck in the middle. That's how you get further stuck in the middle. And that is what you do not want to do. That's what you have to avoid. We've already been stuck in the middle too long. And before anybody responds and says, well, Haize, now being in the middle actually can get you better odds at the draft pick, while that is correct, do you really want to put that financial burden on that when you do it right now? The contract of Chet Holmgren is real. And when you look at the Bulls eventually playing Chet, possibly Buzelis, number 4, number 15, any combination of what you keep that, all at the same time, we already know how ownership is. We're not going to spin into the luxury tax unless we are a legitimate championship contender, right? So you got to think about this. Chet also isn't a primary creator. He's not Nikola Jokic. He's not Luka Doncic. He's not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And he's not that. While his career averages are 16 points, 8 rebounds, 2.1 blocks, which are all really damn good, this is not the playmaker that really can be a hub of your team either, right? So you'd be betting on, again, with the fit of Giddey, Buzelis, Caleb Wilson, whatever you get at 15, be ultimately better than what you get from Chet. And that's what you have to ask yourself. And that's why it's not as straightforward as some people want it out to be. Is Chet a good player? Yes. Would I trade for Chet in some of the right situations and circumstances? Absolutely. Are the Bulls in that situation or circumstance yet? No. So my final verdict on this is it's cap. It's not going to happen. It's not there. It doesn't make sense for the Chicago Bulls right now, and we got to call cap on it. Chet Holmgren is not fit where the Chicago Bulls are right now. And notice, I didn't even say necessarily it's skipping steps because of Chet's age and the timeline there, but it is giving up too many assets right now for where the Bulls are to go all in on a move that doesn't even make them the favorite in the East. That is not where you want to go all in. Not of this team. Not yet. Not in my personal opinion. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that down below. With that said, I did an initial video on Kevin Young, the head coach of BYU, and what makes him a strong candidate, but kind of overarchingly, right? I didn't really get into the weeds because it was immediate. I didn't have a lot of time to dive into it. But for those that talk about college coaches, right, I think that's where a lot of Bulls fans, Bulls fan PTSD is a thing. You do anything that triggers any PTSD that Bulls fans have, and a lot of them are going to shut the fuck down immediately, right? But I do think this. Reportedly, of course, we know that Bryson Graham had early conversations with Kevin Young, but Kevin Young also has G League head coaching experience. He was an assistant with the 76ers. He became the associate head coach with the Phoenix Suns. And he was one of the highest paid NBA assistants, which shows how valuable he was to those NBA teams. Kevin Young is not just a college coach. And I think we have to stop that part of the conversation of making him just a college coach. He has also a history of player development in the NBA and in college, right? So I do think the success that he's had in BYU, having a well above 500 record in his 2 seasons there, making the NCAA tournament both times with it. I say this, Kevin Young may sound like a name that's a surprise when you compare it against some other guys, but I'll tell you what, if the last 2 years Kevin Young was on the bench, for example, of the Miami Heat, rather than in college, I almost guarantee a lot of Bulls fans that are saying no on Kevin Young would actually be positive. He has way more NBA coaching experience than college coaching experience. So Kevin Young is not just a college coach. And I think we got to stop that part of the conversation. This is a guy that legitimately has had NBA success. He has G League success. He has had a career of developing NBA players, right? He has done that type of stuff before. And so when you look at all that and factor it in, I even underestimated what he's done before. This guy's, he's worked with Monty Williams before, which Monty Williams has developed players as well. And I think with this, right, when the Suns chose to move on from Monty Williams, they actually wanted to keep Kevin Young around. They made a huge effort to keep him around, despite them interviewing Frank Vogel and other stuff. They wanted the new head coach to try to keep Kevin Young on. I just think when you dive deeper into Kevin Young's history and what he's done well, he does become a more kind of fit exactly with what Bryson Graham is looking for. I just think because he's a current college head coach, a lot of Bulls fans are automatically turned off because they hear college, they hear head coach, and their mind immediately goes to Billy Bubblegum Donovan, which I can't blame you guys in. But when you look at even how AJ DeBonsta, kind of worked out his game over the course of his freshman year, I do think that there is, some signs that Kevin Young can be a really good developmental coach. And that's what it seems like Bryson Graham is. All these guys that are on this list have a history of developing NBA players. And Kevin Young fits into that as well. I just think some people are overlooking him because of the college coach moniker. And I think when you dive a little bit more into his history, you see that there's more there that actually makes him a solid NBA coaching candidate. Is he the perfect one for the Bulls? That's up for Bryson Graham to decide. But I will say, I even have to admit, his resume is a little bit better than what I gave him credit for in that initial video. And I think that a lot of you guys will see that as well. Even if you take away the last 2 years of BYU, go and look at this guy's coaching career, specifically in the NBA. I think you guys may be a little bit enticed by it. But with that said, we got 2 voicemails, overflow from the weekend. I want to get into this first one. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Haize? This is Shay. Look here, man. I know this may sound crazy and blah, 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 whatever is whatever. But free agency, if I'm the Chicago Bulls, I wouldn't give him no max money or nothing like that, but I'll try to make an offer to Lugan Dort if he's a free agent. Now look, I know a lot of people think, why would Lugan Dort want to leave a free agent, a championship winning team to join a team like the Chicago Bulls? A team that I know OKC is going to want to keep their core group guys together. I know Shea probably has money, and I know for a fact that they're really high on Chet Holmgren. So if I'm the Bulls, I would look to bring in Lugan Dort. Look, I know it's probably a long shot. I know he's probably going to say, okay, see, they're probably going to pay him and all that other bullshit, but think about it. He helps Giddey out a lot. He doesn't necessarily need the ball to score much, and if we are going to draft a guy like Wilson or Boozer, have them play the 4 spot along with Matas at the 2-4 spot, I believe that a guy like Lugan Dort could be a good addition to this team. And plus, he probably doesn't even need to score that much. Or if we do draft a guy like Peterson, if he falls to 4 like the rumors say, but they're just rumors, I think Dort could be good as well playing at the 3 spot and have Matas be at the 4. Look, I know that he may not be the most flashiest pick, but he could be a bit of a help to our team, especially in the starting lineup. And I know I may be crazy thinking that, but hey, it's worth a shot. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Like I said in the episode that I covered the Thunder guys, I wouldn't hate Lou Dort on this team. I think that you have to wait till after the draft to see if it makes sense, because if you draft like a Caleb Wilson and a Cam Carr, I'd rather just develop those guys. I know they're not, neither one is as good. As proven, I should say, is what Lou Dort is, because Caleb Wilson probably is going to be a better player than Lou Dort the moment he steps on a basketball court. That, and I do like Lou Dort is the fact that he's an actual versatile defender that can guard on the perimeter, can guard players way bigger than him in the post. He has that type of strength to be able to do both those things, and that's a rarity in the NBA. Lou Dort is basically what Isaac Okoro wishes he can be as far as the defensive part of it, right? It's truly a game changer defensively, and I agree with that. And he can fit in because he doesn't need the ball in his hands. He can fit in just about any type of roster makeup, which is a good thing too. Overall, I just think this, you have to be choosing what you're doing. If the Bulls, let's say they do go Cam Carr and Caleb Wilson, or Cam Carr and Cam Boozer, you then still have a need a center. And I think that becomes a priority rather than adding a Lou Dort to that team where it comes down to, again, no knock on Lou Dort as a player, for what he does. But at the end of the day, I think you have to first prioritize, see what the Bulls do in the draft, and then that's gonna kind of inform what our priorities should be in free agency, if that makes sense, Shay. But great voicemail there, Shay. One of your best ones, to be honest with you. All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, this is Reginald calling. I just want to say that I agree with you that the Bulls should move down from number 4. That's where you're going to get your best player in the draft is going to come from. And I know there's no such thing as a sure thing. We've seen too many drafts where the guys who are supposed to be, the can't miss prospect turn out to either be a bust or have a history of injuries that will play them throughout their whole career and eventually end it. But, staying in the top 4, I believe, is a must for this Bulls team. Secondly, I think that with all the prospects being alleged to be moving up and down the draft, the guys who are like Morris Jr., Ajay Mara, Cameron Carr, all the guys who are allegedly being moving into the top 15, that would also mean some guys are moving down. One name you mentioned was Braden Burry, someone we really wanted, the Bulls to get at number 8 if they stayed there. And if someone like Burries or Lindbergh would be at 15, I would definitely get them 100%. Because even though I like Cameron Carr at 15, if he's not there, someone decides to take him early, and someone like Burries is there, I think Burries is a better defender. And I think even though I like Cameron Carr's, 3-point shooting a little bit better, Burries is, someone that I think will develop into a better two-way player than Carr. So if the Bulls were to come in and get a Caleb Wilson at 4 and a Lindbergh or, Burries at 15, the Bulls would have stolen the draft. I'm also fine with them, trading their 2 second-round picks to move up, if that's what it takes to get to like number 11 or 12 to get one of those 2 guys. Also, if a team offers a future unprotected first-round pick for their just to move up a handful of spots from, let's say, 20 to 15, and that future pick is either next year or the year after, I'm good with that too. But for me, the best.
If Braden Burries or Yaxel Lindenberg are there at number 15 for the Chicago Bulls have just committed highway robbery and should immediately run away from federal prosecution if that happens. I'm going to tell you that right now. If Yaxel Lindenberg and or Braden Burries are there at number 15, keep in mind we were talking about those guys both being steals at number 9. Somebody's gonna fall. Like I've said before on other episodes, there are so many players in this draft that people are like, oh no, he's gonna be a top 14 pick. It's like 20 players that people have going in the top 14 or 15. Somebody's gonna fall. And if it is Braden Burries or Yaxel Lindenberg, you have just committed the robbery of all robberies, you should immediately run, hide, and look for extradition from someplace. You need to do that because it could be that would be so amazing if that were to happen. So, and you guys know I've had problems with Yaxel Lindenberg talking about him being 24 if we were drafting at 9 and definitely at number 4, but at number 15, if Yaxel Lindenberg is there at number 15, I would not be surprised. And I haven't done any research on this. I'm coming off the top of the dome. If he ends up being the best number 15 pick in NBA history, I wouldn't be surprised in that at all. So let's see what's going to happen with that one. Great voicemails there from Shay and Reggie. Get excited, get the blood boiling, right? We're starting off this week big. Let's see if the Bulls get any type of news or movement with their coaching search over this week. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I want to hear from you guys in regards to this one, though. If Chet Holmgren is truly made available, should the Chicago Bulls come calling? Yes or no? What do you guys? What would you be willing to realistically offer for Chet Holmgren on this team? Have you looked more into Kevin Young, and what do you see about him as a head coaching candidate? Let me know all that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you ready if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.